Right.
and basically provide telemetry into software that now AI software, whether it's operating at the edge in that little camera that's understanding that the gentleman is not wearing his visor next to
Hmm.
the blast furnace,
Right.
or just aggregating millions and millions of data points, you get productivity use cases because now you can see, operational bottlenecks before they happen.
Right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the IoT For All podcast from IoT For All, the number one publication and resource for the Internet of Things. I'm your host, Ryan Chacon. If you're watching this on YouTube, we would truly appreciate it if you give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel if you have not done so already. If you're listening to us on a podcast directory somewhere like Apple Podcasts, please feel free to subscribe so you get the latest episodes as soon as they are out. All right, on today's episode, we have Sandeep Pandya, the Chief Executive Officer of Everguard.ai. They are a company who has a mission at protecting companies' most important assets, which are their people, with a first proactive technology solution dedicated to industrial sustainability. Very interesting company. Definitely recommend you check them out. On today's episode, we talk a lot about AI. We talk about the current state of AI, the role AI has in the IoT space, how AI is even playing a role in saving lives with different types of applications and use cases, big challenges that companies face when they're trying to incorporate and adopt AI into their solution, and also general advice for those looking to bring AI into their IoT solution. So fantastic episode overall. I think you'll get a lot of value out of it. But before we get into it, any of you out there are looking to enter the fast-growing and profitable IoT market, but don't know where to start? Check out our sponsor, Leverage. Leverage's IoT solutions development platform provides everything you need to create turnkey IoT products that you can white label and resell under your own brand. To learn more, go to iotchangeseverything.com. That's iotchangeseverything.com. And without further ado, please enjoy this episode of the IoT For All podcast. All right, Sandeep, welcome to the IoT For All podcast. Thanks for being here this week.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. All right, let's kick this off by having you give a quick introduction about yourself to our audience.
Thank you, Ryan. I am Sandeep Pandya. I'm the CEO of Everguard.ai. Everguard.ai is a venture-backed startup located in Southern California, focused on using deep technologies like artificial intelligence and industrial IoT to make industrial workers safe around the world.
Fantastic. And what I'd love to hear, if you wouldn't mind, is sharing a little bit about kind of how this company even came into existence. So, I know there's a unique story about kind of how y'all started, but what was the opportunity you saw? What were you kind of seeing not being served in the market? What brought this company into existence and kind of got you to where you are now?
Yeah, thanks for that. I'm a technology veteran. I've been doing technology product development for over 3 decades, mostly at large blue chip companies. But back in 2015, I broke away on my first venture-backed startup. It was focused on worker safety using deep technologies, but in the commercial fleet space. And as president over there, I guess I was recruited by one of the investors of Everguard, which is Boston Consulting Group, and then their partner SEA, which is a large Asian steel conglomerate, to basically take the similar concept of using deep technologies for worker safety, but in the industrial setting, particularly steel mills, which SEA has. And they were looking for an experienced executive who could take seed capital and build a team, the tech, and launch the product in the company so that not only will SEA's employees be safer, but working employees in all industries can be safer. And for me, things are going great at my prior company. They're on their way to becoming a unicorn.
Oh,
I
nice.
feel great about that. But the opportunity that really excited me, Ryan, was in the pitch deck from Boston Consulting Group to me, which showed that OSHA, right, the body that regulates worker safety, has found through their research that the top 10 incidents that occur on the job in an industrial setting generally are the same across all industries. And to me, that was an aha moment, which said that,
Sure.
and this was the pitch from BCG to me, which is, hey, come and be the CEO of this company. And if you can help us build a safety platform, an AI safety platform for steel, we can go to oil and gas, we can go to construction, we can go to mining. And that's really what we're trying to do here is just reach more people. And so to be a part of that, to define worker safety in a new way so broadly, so quickly, was just something I couldn't say no to. So
Yeah, I think that pitch they had to you, obviously it worked, but at the same time, it's very relevant to the companies that we're seeing be a success in the IoT space right now. when they're able to build for a particular problem, but it carries a lot of weight across industries. And it's something that is a common problem, not just in one siloed vertical, but across many different industries. And it allows you to have a real opportunity for scale. And I think those companies who have those types of solutions, have those types of products, are seeing a lot of success in the space that we focus on.
I completely agree. I think the superpower that IoT has, whether it's industrial or otherwise, is really its horizontal scaling power.
Hmm.
To your point, which is it's a lot of essentially well understood technology, but it just needs to penetrate different spaces. And when you kind of dial it in one or two places, one or two verticals, or market segments, very quickly, if you're smart, you can take it sideways.
Absolutely. So let me ask you, at kind of at a high level here. I do want to dive into more of how AI is playing a role in saving lives and so forth. But I wanted to start a little further out and discuss the current state of AI. To a lot of people, when they hear AI, they hear it as a buzzword. They really don't understand exactly what it does and what it's doing to add value to solutions that are in the market. If you could start off by just telling us a little bit about how you view the current state of AI in general, and then also the role it really is playing, or you see it playing in the IoT space.
Yeah, great question. And, on its own, it could be a very long conversation. But in the simplest terms, I've been doing AI on and off since the late 80s and early 90s, when I was in grad school. And that's when AI wasn't nearly as cool as it is today. And it was also less mature, and the utility of it was a lot less because it was rules-based programming, if A and B, then C,
Right.
and compute power was a lot lower, and so you really couldn't solve anything but what they call in academia toy problems.
Okay.
Now, what has happened is, over the last 3 decades, and so a lot of other enabling technologies, like in the smartphone world, have miniaturized processors, cameras, location technologies like GPS, and basically created a much more interesting and affordable set of platforms upon which these, candidly compute intensive algorithms can run. And
Mhm.
so that's one thing, which is it's gotten cheaper to do really, really sophisticated programming. But the other kind of, I would say, inflection point in the AI world was the advent of deep learning, which is a neural network type of programming. For those that may know about it, but if it sounds too fancy, it's really just a different way of trying to write algorithms that work better for things like image analysis
Mm.
or audio streams or any kind of signal that's not as simple as A and B equals C, right?
Sure. Sure.
Or conditional kind of stuff. And so, really, what that did is it created a renaissance in computer vision, for instance, or you might have a smart speaker at home. So, natural language processing, it just, whether it's Alexa or Google, it just seems so much more intuitive now. And that's really because about a decade ago, deep learning kicked in and made understanding human language, understanding human activity, meaning is the person smoking? Are they, putting something in their jacket in a retail environment when they shouldn't? Just those types of human behaviors, much more easily understood. Now, I'm not saying that the systems are intelligent; they're just really better at information analysis when the information is this unstructured kind of image or audio stream. And so, anyways, that's a little bit nerdy, but the enabling force is because it's become cheaper to deploy in the
Mhm.
industrial IoT world because the processors are cheaper, for instance, or cellular connectivity is more pervasive,
Right. Right.
and the algorithms themselves are different than 30 years ago. That perfect storm has now made AI much more approachable, and you might have a Ring doorbell that can tell it's a porch pirate versus a car passing by, right? And or the smart speaker can understand what you're saying and order the right thing, etc.
Absolutely. Are there as it pertains to what AI is able to, or is enabling within IoT, are you seeing any use cases kind of leading the way in AI adoption? Or another question kind of related to this is how AI is advancing certain use cases, or any particular use cases that you've kind of seen really kind of bubble to the top recently?
Yeah, I would say, even outside of the safety world, one of the powers of IoT, I think, is extending connectivity to places where before you just couldn't. So whether you're on the shop floor of a fabrication facility or inside of a bar mill or on a construction site, these are really challenging environments in which to operate, right?
Right.
They just are. And the power of the IoT community is to figure out how to create devices that are connected, that can do work like maybe sense things, sense the state of
Mm-hmm.
a machine,
Mm-hmm.
sense the air quality, et cetera, or even human behavior through computer vision and cameras,
Right.
and basically provide telemetry into software that now AI software, whether it's operating at the edge in that little camera that's understanding that the gentleman is not wearing his visor next
Mm-hmm.
to the blast furnace,
Right.
or just aggregating millions and millions of data points, you get productivity use cases because now you can see, operational bottlenecks before they happen,
Right. Right.
or you can see that the worker is looking the wrong way when the crane is approaching,
Mm-hmm.
right? You can now create a world of what we call not just predictive analytics, but what we call prescriptive, which means I actually not just am predicting something bad will happen or unintended, but I can prescribe the solution in real time in hundreds of milliseconds. And IoT is that backbone that enables that. The compute plus the IoT actually makes
Right.
all that happen.
Fantastic. So I wanted to kind of pivot towards the focus area that you all have, because I think it's a very interesting space that we haven't covered all that much, and it's around utilizing these technologies that we're talking about to save lives, and and particularly as it relates to worker environment, that workers who work in these challenging environments, so construction, industrial manufacturing, you name it. Can you just talk a little bit about how AI is really being used to help protect workers in these environments, and just kind of in a general sense?
Yeah, no, I love that question. And we at Everguard have created a framework of thinking about these complex environments. Because if anyone's walked the floor of a steel mill or a construction site, it's as busy as the busiest airport, right? I grew up in Chicago. We always took pride that O'Hare Airport's the busiest airport in the world.
Hmm.
I'm sure some people will argue with that, but the bottom line is these are highly complex environments, people moving, vehicles, machines like cranes, the air quality itself, and then the
Right.
operation, which is not allowed to stop if it can be helped. So we have a framework that breaks it up into 4 buckets, and AI exists at all of them. So
Mhm.
there's the worker level, boots on the ground, right? There's the workspace, that is the man or woman to machine interaction. So vehicle to worker, crane to worker, machine to worker. It could be machine guarding, high
Right.
speed
Right.
machines. Then there is the work environment. So OSHA, for instance, as it relates to safety, maybe people know this or not, but it's not just about what the worker is wearing or how they interact with the machine, but the air they breathe, the light pollution, the noise pollution.
Yep.
All of that have very strict requirements to keep the worker safe. And so you need to monitor that with the right types of sensors. And then ultimately, when you have the worker, their core physiology, PPE, the workspace, their interaction with machines, and the work environment, like environmental sensors looking at air quality, for instance, or noise or light, all of that telemetry aggregates into what we call the corporate governance layer. So as the ESG movement, as you know, Ryan, is all about sustainability and corporations doing the right thing to keep workers and their communities safe and wholesome. How do you do it? Where's the data coming from, right? It's
Sure.
usually paper and pencil and people walking around manually. Well, in the 21st century, that's crazy. But IoT plus AI, what it allows is that real-time telemetry to flow up to the governance level. So the C-suite, the
Sure.
board of directors,
Sure.
shareholders, they now know that when you have an impact report from that big operation, that there's credence, there's credibility to it. And so we're an enabling force. I think IoT and AI can provide that real-time telemetry. And then when you use it the way we're using it, which is prevention of incidents, whether
Mm.
they're environmental or worker injury related, then you have the force going in 2 directions.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's fantastic to kind of break down for us, and very powerful. Kind of as you can explain here, how those technologies are enabling things that weren't possible before. In those deployments that you've been involved in, and you've seen companies adopt these technologies and implement them, what are some of the biggest challenges that you've seen in terms of the adoption side of things? Like when you work with a company to deploy a solution, what challenges are companies oftentimes running into, and how should people be thinking about it who may be listening to this, as so that they can kind of get ahead of it when they're planning for the implementation of this type of technology?
Yeah, I would say, two buckets. I like to think in terms of frameworks, and so there's one frame which is the maturing of the technology in your particular space. And so what I mean by that is, and folks that are from an AI world or a tech world with some familiarity around AI basically trains itself through additional data to get more and more precise, right? I can use the word learning if you want to give it if you want to personify the behavior. But basically, the more data you feed an AI algorithm, the more precise it gets. Facial recognition, or
Right.
whatever, what have you, right? So when we drop some new use cases in, to monitor PPE or the way people are interacting in their environment, even though we might have done that use case 5 other times in 5 other facilities, AI is a little bit sensitive, meaning if the lighting changes, if the background clutter is just a little bit different, there can be a little bit of a startup cost to retrain the models, what we call models, the AI
Mm-hmm.
algorithms, to make sure that the KPIs, the key performance indicators, are in the high 90%. So just coming in, it might be 70 or 80, but with a little bit of retraining to make it bespoke to your environment, it's back in the 90s. But it needs a little bit of time. On the other hand, there's some other technologies like vehicle to worker anti-collision systems that are radio signal based. They just work out of the box. It's just radio technology, right? So that kind of nuanced little bit of understanding of how to deploy and the patience is helpful. And we're talking about weeks and months, not months and years, right? The other framework is the change management piece, the organizational piece, which is, some of your audience might say, yeah, that's all great, but we're in a union shop. The guys are never gonna accept cameras in there. And I've done this now for 8 years after being a deep tech guy in big companies. For the last 8 years, I've been doing worker safety through AI, and first in commercial fleets where drivers didn't want cameras in their faces,
Mm-hmm.
and now on shop floors and steel mills and manufacturing facilities. What we have found since 2015 is that people, believe it or not, are more comfortable with AI. It's less mysterious. People have
Yeah.
a smart speaker. People
Yep.
use, their smartphone. They have
They don't
Ring.
think it's going to take over the world or like.
Exactly. I like to joke, it's not Arnold, it's Alexa. Relax.
Yeah. Right. Right. Exactly.
And for that reason, there's a little bit of anxiety, but believe it or not, we've talked to some of the largest unions on different continents, and they get it, and they understand that this technology, while it appears creepy, it's not meant to be. It's not smarter than it looks. It's really just trained to do specific things, like, is that person wearing a hat? It doesn't know that they're smoking a cigarette if you haven't trained it to do that, right?
Yep.
It's not watching you in that way. So long story short, I would say that the change management piece seems like a barrier, but it's not really if you just train the team, talk to them, and the
Yep.
two things together help us roll out.
Absolutely. And I guess to kind of add on to that as one of my last questions before we wrap up here, what advice do you have for companies looking to bring AI technology into potentially even existing IoT solutions, or to help solve other problems that until now really weren't possible for them? What kind of advice do you have for them to kind of how to approach it?
I would say, just very simply, the technology is ready. We understand that change takes time. So
Sure.
get started now. You don't have to spend a lot. There's companies that are willing to work and start small. One thing I learned in business school is an old phrase: trial leads to adoption. Do a
Hmm.
trial or two, get everyone comfortable, and then really, start making your environments better and smarter with this tech.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's a very common piece of advice, especially in with the conversations I've had in the IoT space. With when start with a trial, understand how it's going to be incorporated into your business, into your legacy systems, your existing infrastructure. Start seeing ROI so that you can then justify the means to deploy it at scale, and then that's kind of obviously where we're all trying to get to. So,
That's the
fantastic
formula.
advice.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. So for our audience who's listening to this and wants to follow up, learn more, dive into a bit more about what you all do, the role you play in the space, maybe follow up with any questions, what's the best way they can do that?
Yeah, we'd love to field any questions, even if it's just for your own edification. You just want to learn more. We're happy to talk to you. Info@everguard.ai. And Everguard is just like it sounds, EVERGUARD.ai. info at, and we'll jump all over it and get back to you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. Fantastic conversation. Our audience, I think, is going to get a ton of value out of this. We'll make sure we link up all the necessary information in the descriptions and the content we push out around this when it goes live. But until then, thank you again, and hopefully we can have you back at some point to talk about other topics related to what you'll have going on.
No, it'd be my pleasure. Thank you again, Ryan. Thank you, listeners.
All right, everyone. Thanks again for watching that episode of the IoT For All podcast. If you enjoyed the episode, please click the thumbs up button, subscribe to our channel, and be sure to hit the bell notification so you get the latest episodes as soon as they become available. Other than that, thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.